Oh, hey guys, didn't see y'all there. Welcome back to the order, y'all. And yes, we are talking about another American hero for this Independence Month, and that will be John Paul Jones. John Paul Jones is probably one of my favorite out of every naval commander in American history, and you'll soon understand why. This guy was, well, probably one of America's greatest type of, well, naval commanders, and as well, it's even stated he is the father of America's Navy for one major reason. It's stated that he was born on July 6, 1747, in Arkenbridge House in Cambridgeshire, Scotland, and as well died on July 18th, 1792, in Paris, France. John started his maritime career at the age of 13 on the ship, French ship, under the name of Captain Benson. It's actually later stated that several years later John sailed on many merchant and slave ships, even the King George, in 1764 as a third mate, while his friends were first and second mate. Now, during a voyage in 1768, I want to say, it was actually stated that Captain and, well, the first mate had actually fallen ill to, well, yellow fever and died. In such, Jones managed to actually navigate the ship back into port, and reward was made Master and Commander, Ship of the Crew. In other words, he was made Master of the ship and the crew and such. Then in such he would actually later on, lead 2 voyages to the West Indies, and he even called America his country of his fond election. And in 1775, Jones was later on in the United States military, or in the United States Navy at this point, and his which was even spotted by Richard H. Lee, and made first lieutenant of a 24-gun frigate known as the USS Alfred on December 7th, 1775. Which, if many of you all understand December 7th, guess what? Every time in the history, before the attack on Pearl Harbor especially, on December 7th, the United States Navy would always, do the national anthem as a type of ceremony for, well, John Paul Jones. However, after the December 7th attack by the Japanese, that actually finally stopped. In fact, it's actually stated that the Navy were actually doing the ceremony right when the attack happened. So, yeah. But in such, it's actually stated that in 1776, Jones actually was given command of the USS Providence type of, well, event into Nova Scotia. Or in this case, the Nova Scotia campaign. And as such, he was even made, well, captain and admiral at this point in time. And in such, he had actually captured 16 ships and actually causing great damage in the raid on Canso. Or in such. Now, I hear many of you already, Templar, how the hell can a one ship do this? Well, that's what I mean by it. He was no ordinary commander. In such, he was known to be fearless and outgunned, but yet he would always come back on top. In fact, even if it came to 30 ships, he would always somehow manage to beat the enemy back, and yet come back all winning with a smiled face. Then it was actually stated that he had liberated at least 100 of American, soldiers that were pushed into labor camps and as well mines in Nova Scotia. But winter forced him to, abandon the campaign and raiding in Nova Scotia, so he couldn't exactly keep going. But, however, in 1777, he was given command of the USS Ranger, which is probably one of the most famous type of things in history that he was given. And in 1778, he was stated to have attacked the shores of England, which this is where John Paul Jones is famously remembered in history as a pirate, a renegade, a terrorist to the English countryside. Which, this is what I have to put out here. Many times over, he would actually attack all parts of around England, and as such, he would sail directly, one ship alone, to destroy an entire armada. He would use tactics near identical to that of pirates. In other words, hit-and-run strategies, and as well, strategize the entire area. It's actually stated that he would actually use a British naval flag before engaging against the British. He would actually learn from the British if they had actually any information on him. But the thing is, he would always wear a British blue coat, hence the term of a pirate. and a terrorist to the English countryside. And in 1778 and through to 1779, it's actually stated that John Paul Jones would later on attack parts of England, Scotland, and Ireland and Wales, all throughout the areas that of which England had major command posts. It's actually stated that this one ship alone, he could easily destroy hundreds of fleets, and in such, he had actually built up the United States Navy in a matter of days and months rather than amount of weeks. It's actually stated that while doing this, he had actually recruited many Scots, Irish, and Welsh to fight with him against the British, in which they were a little too more than happy to actually fight with him, seeing as though they did not like the English that much. However, in 1787, when the war finally was mostly ended, it's actually stated that John Paul Jones would act as Rear Admiral for the Russian Navy, since he didn't want to give up his fighting career. It's stated he would stay as this until 1792, when he was found in his Paris apartment dying from enteral nephrosis, face down in his bed. It's actually stated that he was buried at St. Louis Cemetery, which belonged to the royal family, actually, I might add. 4 years from later, as such, it was then actually stated that the French government had actually sold the property, and in such, the cemetery along with it was forgotten. And in such, we don't know what actually happened all throughout the history line. However, it's actually stated until 1905. It was stated that when John Paul Jones' remains were finally found, and in 1906, John's coffin was finally taken back to the United States, in which was placed in Buford Hall at the U.S. Navy Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. It's actually stated that this was a very rare honor, and this is a beautiful casket that was stated to have been made out of, I want to say, marble and bronze, so that's, you gotta admit, that's kind of cool. Now, it's actually stated that while this actually happened, it's stated that following a ceremony, Theodore Roosevelt actually called and gave a speech to many of the United States military and such, and the United States Navy, and stated that he is an example of all naval officers, that of which they should strive to become. The man that should not give up any fight, no matter what the cost. Even if he is badly outnumbered, badly outgunned, he can easily face off against all opponents, whether or not he is alone. Now, it's actually later stated that in 1913, it was stated that he was finally laid to rest in Naval Academy Chapel in Annapolis, Maryland. It's stated, though, that in the process of his bronze and marble sarcophagus, that which we see right before us. Now, I want to put this out here, y'all. This guy, as such, he was one of the most courageous American heroes in American history, yet most people don't remember him. The first time I ever heard about him was from a show known as Liberty's Kids, and this show told me something about him. And I think one of the most famous quotes he had ever given is stated, "I have not yet begun to fight." And in such, that is something that you gotta understand. He was actually always outgunned, always outnumbered, yet he always managed to defeat his opponents. And in such, he even told the naval commander, which told him to lower his flag and such. However, that's when John Paul Jones stated, "Nay, sir, but I intend to make you strike yours." In other words, lower his. It stated the naval commander was so terrified that he actually fled. You gotta admit, that is probably hilarious, coming from the fact that this guy did not give a damn if he was outnumbered. He would battle to the very end and fight. Now, it's actually stated that in history that while attacking parts of England and such, he had actually destroyed at least over hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of naval vessels in this span time from the time he had first actually become a, naval commander in history, such as in 1775, up until the end of the American Revolution. It stated that his raids actually saved the American cause for independence, while the United States commanders, such as, and leaders like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, stated that they needed a, major type of naval type fleet, and stated that, the Navy is better than ours, or the military force is better than ours, and Ben Franklin was trying to get more aid. Guess what? John Paul Jones didn't care. He would battle to the very end. And in fact, it's even stated that while capturing over at least, I want to say, a dozen British regulars, Marines or whatever, a British regular, or Marine I should say, would actually even ask him the following question: "Sir, you are a British subject. Why must you attack your fellow countrymen?" That is when John Paul Jones stated to him, "I am an Englishman, but in such I became an Englishman by the point of a sword." If none of y'all know what this means, well, he's Scottish. And in such, Scotland in 1747, 1 year after the Battle of Culloden, not good. And in fact, many Scots still hate the English for this. And in fact, this is why you don't call a Scotsman a Brit, otherwise you're bound to get your ass kicked. The same can go in Ireland or in Wales, because, well, they really don't like the English. But now I do have to explain to y'all, this guy is probably one of my favorite out of all naval commanders in American history. He had actually managed to fully defeat massive armies like nothing. He was called a renegade, a pirate, a terrorist to the British country. And in such, he had actually used his knowledge of the British shores to know how to defeat his opponents, since he had actually grown up in parts of, well, the United Kingdom. He actually destroyed many parts in the areas that of which the English needed to actually fully, well, send out supplies, such as many ports. He'd stated that in process of destroying these merchant ships and including all these, well, frigates and such, he had actually destroyed or crippled the British military in a matter of seconds. When it came to them, it took them a lot longer to destroy the American Navy. So you gotta admit, John Paul Jones is probably one of our legendary badasses of American history, which is why we need to explain him about this in American history. Problem is, most people don't realize of how awesome this guy was. But now, if any of y'all have any ideas for the, well, Independence Month, please let me know down in the comments below. I'll be happy to talk about it for American Revolutionary Month, so that way we can talk about it. Now, it has to belong to American Revolution and such, so it's like the American Revolution pointing standards and heroes and such, and as well, probably, I guess, 1812, so, yeah. But we gotta understand that the entirety of history, this guy sacrificed his life to save his new nation. And in such, it's even stated that he was known to have the wild red hair of the devil, which, you gotta admit, that's kind of hilarious. However, we gotta understand, though, that he had actually died and left his country, his crew, all behind. And as well, even left it to a new first mate, that of which was by the name of John F. New. John F. New was actually stated to be a nicknamed New because he was a new man. That's right, he was once a prisoner, or in this case, in a jail cell, a runaway. That's right, a slave. He had actually become a new man as soon as he joined John Paul Jones' naval fleet. It's stated that in such, John Paul Jones even stated that under no circumstances is any man above any man. In such, we are all equal in the eyes of God. Or, well, in truth, I don't believe he would have said it like that in historical type form. If we had to know one thing, he might have actually stated it like this: God has made us all equal, and in such, I must look no longer at any man as different as I. So, you gotta admit, he was kind of more, well, enthusiastic to his type of role as a true leader. Now, in truth, though, we don't exactly have much information on him other than his past in naval warfare, due to the fact the historical contents of his history are left shrouded in mystery. But we do have to understand, though, that under historical times, well, America has forgotten its historical leader, unless you're a naval officer. So, and if you're trying to get part of the United States Navy, I suggest you look up this badass before you start thinking it's a good idea, because you're gonna have to try and become like him. Anyways, guys, this has been Templar. Have a great day, and happy Independence Day.